It's Phil Vischer. Welcome back to the Phil Vischer Podcast. I'm here with Christian Taylor.
Hi, Phil Vischer.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm good. That's kind of autumnal.
It's a hybrid.
It's fall colors. You're wearing fall colors.
Really?
Well, it's not spring. It's burgundy.
It's Merlot.
Merlot.
Oh, I love that.
That's
It's
nice.
Merlot.
That's nice. Back from your days as a color stylist.
What do you mean days? I'm still a color
right.
stylist.
You're always a color
Always,
stylist.
once and always.
And SKYE
Sky
JETHANI.
JETHANI.
Hi, SKYE.
Hi.
Is
I'm
that
gray.
Is that gray?
It is gray.
Yeah.
This is actually a Nehru collared shirt that I got
is.
in
Oh, look at
India.
that.
Is that in? You bought that in India?
Oh, yeah. Cotton World.
Cotton World?
World.
Is that the theme park in India?
There's a store called Cotton World.
That sounds like an American
In
store
English?
in
Yeah,
India.
it's called
English?
Cotton. You know, they speak English there. The British ruled for quite a while.
Yeah. Okay. That's right.
I think you guys should mix it up one day, and I think you two should wear really bright
We should both
colors.
wear pink,
Like pink
and you
or
should wear gray.
purple or something, and I should wear
That
gray.
would be awesome. We'll plan on that.
I think people would be thrilled.
Hey, it's a podcast. What do you know? Hey, it's a podcast. We got video. Hey, it's a podcast. So Landon here. The Phil Vischer Podcast starts right here. We'll talk to SKYE
Yes, you will.
and Christian too.
I hope you will.
We've got no guest, but we've got an audience member here for you.
Woohoo!
And her name is
Tawny.
Tawny.
How do you spell that?
TAWNI.
Oh, that's a color.
That's
Almost.
The Y.
the Y.
Right,
Yeah,
almost.
it's the color of a tiger. Tawny tiger.
That's Tony.
Scrawny lion.
That was a joke.
Oh,
Tawny the tiger.
It's a lion.
Oh.
Tony the Scrawny Lion.
Tawny.
It's a book.
finish the song, Phil.
She's a college student at
Northwest
NNU.
Nazarene University.
Northwest Nazarene University in Idaho, and she's related to Sarah Palin by marriage. Hey, it's a podcast. So Landon here. The Phil Vischer Podcast starts right here. The Phil Vischer Podcast starts right here. How you been?
Awesome.
Really?
Yeah.
Are you just saying that? Is it the weather? Do you have
Well,
a
the
good
weather totally helps. We are getting kicked out of our house
Yeah.
after 4 years.
That- you can't
and
beat
it's
that.
so exciting.
Did you so your lease actually, because you're renting, your lease actually says that your landlord can kick you out?
Yeah, I mean, in the state of Illinois, they can give you 30 days notice.
Really?
And so,
Even
yeah.
if you've signed a year lease?
Yeah,
I didn't know that.
Is it
So-
like eminent domain?
kind of. I mean, I don't think he's necessarily going to kick us out, but he wants
Yeah.
us out by June 1st, and he wants to do all this rehab beforehand. So, anyway, it's a new adventure, and I'm really looking forward to what that's going to bring.
You like new adventures?
I really do.
Okay.
And my kids have been really disobedient lately.
Rambunctious?
I'm choosing to see that as an opportunity to teach them about who they are in light of who God is and
good.
their need for his grace and redemption.
That's good.
And mine.
And can you visit them in jail?
Yes, hopefully.
SKYE, how are you?
I'm fine.
Certainly you have more than that.
You really make this easy.
Yeah. No, I don't know. Things are just plugging along. Spring break starts this
Are
weekend.
you going anywhere?
We are going to Disney World.
Did he talk you into that?
No.
He's picked up the ball and run with it.
Oh, gosh.
No,
I
we're-
guess
but
I'm
see,
the only
here's
one
the thing.
left out.
I'm not going alone.
Yeah, I know.
That is a
I
difference.
am going with my children and wife.
As
It's a lot
appropriately
cheaper to go
so.
alone.
It is cheaper to go alone. Although I had so many miles built up that we're all flying for free, which is nice.
That's very
That
nice.
saves us the money. That's what made it possible, really.
They
Yeah.
give you great deals once you get down there.
Yeah, well,
Especially at Bonanza and Ponderosa and Sizzler. Like the buffets. You go for the buffets.
That's what you
Right,
recommend?
Yeah.
I would love for
Yeah, it's
you
all the-
to write.
Not on property, though. There's no great deals on
No,
property.
there are none.
You got to...
I would love for you to write
Kissimmee.
a Disney World, this is how you do it.
how about a Disney guide for creative introverts?
I was thinking about that.
Were you
when
really?
I was thinking that I'm losing touch with how to do Disney well because they keep changing the rules.
They
Oh.
do.
And making it harder to do well.
Like, what do you mean?
And I'm kind of annoyed by it, so I'm just not keeping up anymore. Well, like you can now actually book your place on certain rides like 6 months in advance.
Yeah, that's what we've had to do.
Yeah, you can
Wow.
book your meals depending on if you are, a Disney Vacation Club member. I think you can book meal reservations up to 9 months in advance if you're just a regular schmo.
There's no spontaneity anymore.
No, basically you can't just show up and have a good time.
Yeah.
If you just
Yeah.
show up and just showing up and having a good time is like just showing up at Southwest and hoping for a good seat. You know,
Right.
you have to know how the system works on Southwest to get a good
And you
seat.
can't game the system now.
No, because everybody knows about it.
Here's what's annoying to me. I feel, and this is a bigger cultural issue.
Go ahead.
With digital devices, everything has now become spontaneous. You used to have to plan your day or who you're going to meet when and where. And, you know, my daughter, the teenager, and their plans are always fluid because everyone has a device and you can always contact
say, "I'll text you."
Exactly. Everything's becoming more spontaneous. With Disney, everything's becoming less spontaneous because now you have to plan everything months. Like, I know exactly what ride at what time we're going to be on for the 5 days we're there.
Well, and that means it leaves out the opportunity for you to discover
Serendipity.
something
Exactly.
new
Serendipity
or-
is written out of, and the other thing that they just did, which annoys me, is they've gone with demand pricing.
Yep.
They
What does
just
that
made
mean?
a change. So now the pricing is different based on what time of year you're going, based on how popular it is. So if you want to go at a really popular time, it costs more.
That's terrible.
And that's okay if they lowered the price for the slow
Significantly.
periods.
Right, they didn't.
But they didn't. So the price for the slow periods is the current price. And then the medium periods are higher, so it's like 104, 115.
So it's a way to
125.
raise prices
Yeah,
without.
so it wasn't just about regulating crowds. It was about we could actually make more money if it was. So the least you can get in for is what you used to be able to get in for any day of the year. And now if you want to go like anywhere near Christmas or spring break days, now it's like $25 more a person a day.
They're doing what the
That's
airlines did
annoying.
with like baggage fees and stuff like
Yeah.
that. It's going to be if you want your child back at the end of the day, you have to pay more.
I'm not happy about it.
Yeah.
I'm not happy.
So,
about it.
I mean, basically, you can't just show up there and have a good day. You can show up there and walk around, but
If you want to do anything, yeah,
Right.
and it's just it partly is because of just how successful it is, because it's never not busy,
right.
Like 365 days a year, it's just never not busy, and so they have to do things to moderate the crowd. But the easiest way to moderate the crowd is just to raise the prices,
Well, it's supply and demand.
which means the poorest families get bumped off first, which is kind of
That's very sad.
That's not what America was built on. Actually, it is, but I wish it wasn't.
Okay.
What are we talking about today?
Speaking of Disney, actually,
Yes?
this is a little side story. Here's an article about how Disney and Pixar mislead your kids.
Ooh, this ought to be good.
It's an article in economics. It's cool to be poor. That's the implied message in some of the most popular children's movies of all time, including classics such as
Aladdin.
Snow White, Aladdin, A Bug's Life, and Ratatouille, according to a new study from Duke University researchers. The study examined the socioeconomic status of characters in 32 G-rated films and found a kind of Lake Wobegon effect. The wealthy were overrepresented, poverty was glamorized, and upward mobility seemed effortless. Jesse Stribe is the lead author of the study. Says inequality in these movies is downplayed, sanitized, and even erased. Poor characters don't suffer any hardships. Some of them, their fathers are eaten by wolves.
That's true.
But that's like the definition of a fairy tale.
Working class characters
Right.
love being working class, and upper class characters look out for the working class and the poor. So there's no reason to be upwardly mobile. It's ruining our children.
So wait, they're saying that rich people are
in Disney films,
rich people are magnanimous. And,
yes,
yeah.
rich people are kind, and the poor aren't resentful for being poor.
the poor are happy being poor.
Yeah.
Well, they whistle while they work. they find joy in manual labor. I mean, that's
Yeah,
basically.
well, they don't make $5 an hour for, tons of hours of hard labor.
Well, who wants to go to a Disney animated movie to learn about reality?
We want to see, why haven't
Exactly.
they done the animated version of what?
Che Guevara?
Yes, Che Guevara. Why don't they do the peasant uprising? Why don't they do the animated
Les
Fidel
Miserables.
Castro story? What we want to see the workers of the world.
But here's the bottom line with all of that.
Yes.
Truthfully,
care?
nobody is going to go and watch that, but it really does rewire their brains to desire this fantasy world.
The study also found a false parallel between the travails of the rich and the poor. In Aladdin, for example, the title character is a street urchin who has to steal food to survive, while his newfound friend, Jasmine, is a princess bored with the trappings of wealth. While Aladdin describes his hard-scrabble life dodging the authorities, Jasmine complains that she's not free to make her own choices. As if the plight of a poor hustler equals the challenges faced by a self-absorbed one-percenter.
Someone has got way too much time on their hands.
Well, it's Duke University.
Clearly.
Well, they
apparently.
do have a point.
Do you? And this is their conclusion. These are the first messages kids receive about social class and inequality. They're very powerful. We should show that poverty is really a tough experience. A lot of people don't go from rags to riches the way these movies portray.
Okay, hold on a second.
I can't wait to hear what
No,
you have to
because-
say.
I thought this would get Sky
So they're
going.
saying these are the first messages that kids in America hear about economics or
That-
poverty or whatever. They're also the first messages kids in America hear about romantic love or marriage or family. All these movies, most Disney movies have family structures that are completely broken. Most Disney
Well,
characters.
look at Bambi.
Well, yeah, but even most Disney families, they don't have a mother, or the mother gets eaten by the barracuda or whatever.
Exactly, or
So-
shot by hunters.
So, but
know why?
Because that sets up a drama.
Creates empathy.
Exactly, it creates empathy.
Yeah.
It creates a problem.
But at the bottom line, these are fairy tales.
Exactly.
And fairy tales are to help children work out their angst.
And learn about socioeconomic status. Right?
Apparently.
So you don't
But it
think-
does happen.
You don't think they have a point?
I think they have a point.
You think they have a point? You don't think they have a point?
They do rewire. Look, are you kidding? I grew up on Disney movies. I'm still waiting for my Prince Charming.
Well,
No, no, well,
we won't tell Jeremy that, will we?
You know, I guess I shouldn't have said that.
Okay, let me backpedal so Christian can collect herself. Here's the thing.
Honey, I'm so sorry. That's not what I meant.
Good thing he doesn't listen to the podcast.
He does every now and then. I hope he misses this one.
Okay, so if there's somebody in extreme poverty and they watch Aladdin,
Yeah.
do you think they're going to walk away from that movie going, yeah, you know what? My poverty's really not that bad.
They are going to walk
No.
away wishing that
No.
what could happen in their circumstance or in Aladdin's circumstance happens
Sure,
to them.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So are they saying the problem here is where fairly wealthy, affluent American kids see these movies and they think poverty's not that bad, so they don't have to do anything about it?
They're just saying, I think, that it doesn't give kids a realistic view of what it is to be poor, what it is to be rich. Do rich people care about the poor? It seems kind of like Bernie Sanders got really irritated with Disney movies.
Okay, but here's the thing. Disney movies don't give kids a realistic vision of anything.
That is true.
Yeah.
That's the whole
Right.
point. It's escapism.
Do you think that any movies, the only movies that are really realistic about the human condition are ones that very few people go to see?
Right. We don't want
Right.
to see those.
No, we don't want to see realism.
Well, I
we
think-
don't want to see life as it is. We want to see life as we wish it were.
Exactly.
I think The Godfather does a lot.
They could make The Godfather today. Nobody
not?
would go see it.
Why?
Because that the kind of movie doesn't get made. We want.
Well,
No
now you're talking about the business side
There's
of
no
things now.
superheroes in it. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
I don't know. Maybe on TV. Maybe it could be like
But
a,
what
Yeah, that's what it would
a
be.
Breaking
Okay.
Bad.
Right.
Hang
it would
on a
be that
second.
kind of
Yeah.
thing.
What do
What?
they
What?
recommend we do about this then?
They don't really have recommendations, although clearly they feel that Disney should start making movies about the miseries of poverty.
Yeah, this is so
Oh,
ridiculous.
yeah, that would go over so well.
The only thing that make this better is if you tell me the study was government funded.
It's Duke University. I don't know who funded it. Okay. But in related news, democracy. Okay, we're in the
Has
middle.
gone haywire in America.
Actually, it's doing exactly what it does best.
Democracy may or may not work, and there's a reason that we've just seen play out in the UK. So the British built a new boat. It's a research.
Oh, I just saw
It's
this.
a research boat.
I didn't. Tell
I
me.
love this.
UK's Natural Environment Research Council spent $300 million building a new boat for the latest in polar research. And someone said, hey, let's let everyone vote on what its new name should be.
It's a pretty spectacular
It
looking
is
research
a
vessel.
spectacular,
Let me
yeah,
see.
there's a picture of it. Isn't that beautiful?
That is
It's a beautiful boat.
It's a big ship, actually.
Ton for ton, it is the most advanced research ship in the world. And they said, we're looking for an inspirational name that exemplifies the work it will do. The ship could be named after a local historical figure, movement, or landmark, or a famous polar explorer or scientist. And then they opened it up to the masses to name the boat.
This ought to be good.
Do you know what name won?
I do.
It's got, is it a Disney name?
No, for the $300 million pride of the British research fleet, the ultimate winner was the RMS Boaty McBoatface.
Stop.
It's true.
Runner-ups were Ice Baby and Not the Titanic.
I would have gone with that one. I would have so gone with that one.
Where's this article?
But the winner is in the Telegraph, UK. The winner was the RMS Bodie McBoatface.
But they came back and said that they're going to have a committee.
They did say, okay, we do reserve the right to not use the first choice of the public.
How was that arrived at?
People suggested names and then they voted on them.
And then they voted on them.
So,
I wanted to pass this along to our pastor because we're in the midst of renaming our church.
Yeah,
and
Bodie
just
McBoatface.
The dangers of
McChurchface.
the dangers of opening up this to popular suggestion.
How about just McChurch?
I mean, I'm a little
McChurch.
disappointed in the English. I would have thought that sounds like an American
I wonder if
answer.
it was an English-only vote or if it was global. And could you do that? Could you make it English-only? Could you make it in the UK?
Well, having the
only if
Mick on the
it's
front is
online?
either a reference to McDonald's or to Scotland.
Bodie McBoatface. Yeah. So it's
Scottish?
that doesn't tell us anything.
No, it doesn't.
Not really. But, okay. It's very Monty Python-ish.
It is. It's that
Yeah.
British sense of humor that we actually love.
What would be fantastic is if they actually named it that, because it would become a cult following.
Ahoy!
They'd have so many people interested in polar expeditions
That's
just because
very
of that.
true.
We're here aboard Boaty McBoatface. We're going to the poles.
I saw this report on CNN just today. Actually, they were reporting on it, and I just bent over laughing when they
Hilarious.
announced the name.
It's quite funny. But so they built a mechanism into the voting system whereby
We can overrule you.
calmer heads can prevail
Right.
and say, sorry, will of the people, you've gone mad.
Can we do that in America?
We have that. That was the goal of the Electoral College. That's the goal of, that's why when people vote in the primaries, they're not actually voting for candidates.
Right,
They're
they're
voting
voting
for
for-
delegates.
right.
Mm-hmm.
And the delegates will vote for candidates, and the delegates can change their minds when they get to the primary after the first vote. It's currently the rules. So we knew, and this is what people, now obviously if they don't pick Bodie McBoatface, there could be riots
Well,
because they haven't honored the will of the people.
at least Bodie McBoatface is not profane, anti-woman, anti-immigrant, or a narcissist.
This is true.
You haven't met Bodie McBoatface. We don't know.
You're guessing.
Although
We don't know what
he
the
is,
character of this boat
he
is.
is just as red.
He is a good-looking boat. It's a very good-looking boat. But we built those kind of.
Except, let me just say one thing. I have also been watching CNN, and I have been watching the race to the White House, and I have learned that even our most distinguished, most honored president, Abraham Lincoln, was not above bribing delegates to change their votes.
He was a
to vote
politician.
I know. So, and that's exactly what is happening. Democracy is not as democratic as it may seem.
Nothing is as democratic as it may seem. Even
This podcast.
That's for sure.
whoever said this was democratic.
Nobody.
I picked the
You have
stories.
from the beginning. You said this is my podcast.
I decide when it's done. I decide when it starts. Okay, it's time for what I call the Trump date. It's time for the Trump date, which is our
That
update
will not be me.
on Donald Trump. No, you're not dating him. It's an update.
I will never
it's an
date him.
update on Donald Trump.
He is not my Prince Charming, no matter how much money he makes.
Don't even bring that up again, because it's
I know.
the more you mention
Just
that.
ripping the Band-Aid off the wound.
Yeah, that's bad. And one of our viewers sent this in. One of our viewers sent in a link to, I don't know if it was their pastor, but it is a pastor. The pastor is Robert Cunningham. He's the pastor of Tate's Creek Presbyterian Church. And they have a great slogan. Hang on. Let me give you their slogan. Do you know what the slogan is of Tate's Creek Presbyterian Church? What are you writing down?
He's taking notes on our podcast.
I'm writing down what articles you are referencing.
Tate's Creek Presbyterian Church. Tate's Creek Presbyterian Church exists for the glory of Christ and the good of the bluegrass.
I like that.
The glory of Christ and the good of the bluegrass. They're in Lexington, Kentucky.
Oh, I was just there.
Bluegrass.
A lot of bluegrass.
Which is
yesterday.
really
I
great.
was down there when I went to Asbury.
Oh, yeah, Asbury. That's
Yeah.
in bluegrass.
Okay, what's the point?
Okay. So,
Don't say that too much when you're talking about Trump.
I said it five times. I think I'm clean.
All right.
In love with Donald Trump, Robert Cunningham, pastor, Tate's Creek Presbyterian Church. When we began to see the surprising rise of Donald Trump, leading evangelical voice Russell Moore wrote an op-ed in the New York Times challenging evangelical voters to rethink their support of a man so antithetical to the Christian faith that to vote for him would be to, quote, repudiate everything they believe. Well, 6 months later, it appears evangelical voters have repudiated everything they believe. But what if, and he has an interesting angle on this, what if evangelicals, or any tribe for that matter, aren't primarily compelled by what they believe, but instead by what they love? In fact, what if every one of us will gladly repudiate what we believe before we would ever repudiate what we love? And
can you unpack that?
And what if Donald Trump, though contradictory to evangelical beliefs, is the embodiment of current evangelical loves?
Whoa.
So,
are you with me?
Yeah.
I'm with you now.
There's a book about this.
James K.A. Smith's book,
There it is.
Desiring the Kingdom.
He actually has a newer one out called You Are What You Love.
Desiring the Kingdom Part 2?
No,
his newer one is?
I think maybe it's not released yet. It's called You Are What You Love.
Oh, okay. Well, not all of us have access to unreleased books, Sky. Not all of us.
But you all have access to Amazon.
Oh.
It's on Amazon.
You can read the book?
No, but you can see the book.
Well, how do you know what it says?
Because I know his message.
Oh, okay. That's fine.
Don't question him.
So James K.A. Smith says, uses love to describe those deeper longings and desires of the human heart. Contrary to Western enlightenment that views us as minds compelled by our thoughts, the Bible views us as lovers compelled by our loves.
It does.
Mm-hmm.
I just read that, actually.
Really?
Yes.
You did?
In my quiet time today.
Smith argues that loves are formed by our habits. Of course, we know this is true with our personal habits, but what we often don't see is the formative power of corporate habits, what Smith refers to as cultural liturgies. Do you know that term?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, cultural liturgies. You look confused.
No, I'm just pondering what that actually means.
A liturgy, what's the definition of liturgy?
Liturgy is literally the work of the people.
Oh, a literal liturgy.
A literal liturgy.
So the work of the people.
So what we do together, the practices, the customs, the rituals that we engage in together actually form our desires.
Right.
So you take this out of a religious context entirely. When the entire culture practices Christmas and the shopping and all that, it trains children to be consumeristic, right? Just because the whole culture does it and they get caught up in it and they don't even think to question it. Or the whole culture takes a pause to do brackets in March for March Madness, and it trains you to love college basketball.
Right, but only 1 month a year.
Right.
When things turn green, it's time to love college basketball.
Right.
Yeah. So, for example, is it a coincidence the vast majority of Americans are bent toward greed and overconsumption? Of course not. Our culture has trained us to be ravenous consumers. Now consider...
So says Sky, over and over again
so
for the past 10
would
years.
Have us believe. Now consider Donald Trump. In one sense, he makes no sense. From a character and even policy standpoint, evangelical support for Donald Trump is utterly mystifying. But I think we aren't giving the convictions of evangelicals enough credit. They know enough to know what Trump is saying and doing is wrong, and yet they're still supporting him. Why? Because we are never compelled by our ideals like we are by our loves. And when you look at Donald Trump through the shared loves of the evangelical culture, he starts to make perfect sense.
What are the shared loves of the evangelical
this is actually
culture?
The best part of this. What happens when the liturgies of our greedy culture train evangelicals to love money and power? What happens when the liturgies of talk radio train evangelicals to love anger and paranoia? What happens when the liturgies of social media train evangelicals to love sensational sound bites more than thoughtful discourse? What happens when the liturgies of modern worship services train evangelicals to love novel, flashy, and glib emotional experiences that feel more like a rally than corporate worship? What happens when the conference culture of the church trains evangelicals to love the big celebrity leader? What happens when preaching that prioritizes relevant, shocking, and brash sermons trains evangelicals to love tell-it-like-it-is ranting?
I know what happens.
What happens when the liturgies from the days of the moral majority train evangelicals to love America as much as Jesus?
I know what happens.
I like Robert Cunningham.
I know what happens. I know where this is going.
Which then leads to an incessant longing within churches to, quote, make America great again. What happens?
We get Donald Trump.
Evangelicals in love with Donald Trump happens. Russell Moore closes his op-ed piece with a plea to evangelicals. We ought to listen to get past the boisterous confidence and the television lights and the waving arms and hear just whose speech we're applauding. But what if the boisterous confidence and the television lights and the waving arms are precisely what evangelicals have been trained to love? What if they can't listen because they are enraptured? What if they applaud not because Trump has given them a speech, but because Trump has given them what they love?
Well, that absolutely correlates with a study that just came out.
Huh?
Because they took a bunch of people that were watching the last Republican debates and they hooked them up with EKGs.
Brain monitors.
And
such.
And whenever he came on the screen, whether they liked him or didn't like him.
They salivated?
Like crazy. Their brains went nuts. Even the ones that said they just hated him or they weren't interested in him at all.
So he's a stimulating, controversial figure.
He's catnip.
He is.
He's catnip.
Well, I mean, even a 4-year-old just looking at a picture of Donald Trump is going to have their brain stimulated because they're going to ask what animal is on his head.
What am I looking at?
Wait, what's on his head?
What am I looking at?
Yeah.
Mother, what am I looking at?
And then when he starts talking and the way he does his hand movements.
Oh, I hate that hand movement.
It
just makes me sick.
How does he do that with his finger?
I don't know. I was trying to. His hand, it's like this.
He's like Spider-Man about to throw a web,
I feel like we're getting off track.
And he's like this, and he keeps saying the same things over and over again that has no substance.
Because it makes people applaud.
He is so right on. I'm with him.
I thought that his paragraph about the liturgies
so well
of our
said.
culture was really
Can you send me that link?
profound. We'll put it on SKYE's email list.
Yeah. If you sign up for my free email newsletter, the day after the podcast or the day of the podcast.
That's the new thing?
Yeah, you get all the links for all the articles.
Oh, now everybody's going to sign up for that because they've been asking.
It's free. SKYJETHANI.com.
And I can use that email list too, right?
Yes, Phil can.
Okay. I'll let you use my email list.
Yeah, you don't have one.
I have a Twitter. I'll tweet you something if you sign up for my Twitter. I don't tweet very often because I'm not a bird. What? Okay, so we're thoughtful Christians.
I would like to think we are.
How do you go against our own cultural liturgies?
I say we all make a podcast and everybody goes out there.
Well, he references James K.A. Smith, also known as Jamie Smith, in his book Desiring the Kingdom and all that stuff. And really, people should read his stuff because we have had this assumption in the church that if you teach people to think the right thoughts, that they will act the right way. And not only Smith, but Dallas Willard and numerous other people in the spiritual formation kind of realm of writing have debunked that over and over and over again. Just having the right, I'm sure if you give a bunch of Christians a little exam on basic theology, they'd probably be able to answer the correct way. But that doesn't impact the way they actually live. This is what I was trying to get at in The Divine Commodity, my first book about consumerism. I didn't use the language of heart or desire, things like I did a little bit, but I used the language of imagination. What is it that shapes the way you think and your desires? That happens on a far deeper level, and most of our churches have completely abandoned that level of engagement.
Right.
So
But it's not until everybody gets disenchanted with their faith about, it not really making a difference in their life that they stop and examine, okay, wait a second, this thing that I've bought into intellectually or any other way is not satisfying my soul. And so then they start looking for something to satisfy their soul.
Well, the easiest way to look at that is to just look how you actually spend your time.
Yeah.
What do I try to do what do I try to find time for? And I have to do that myself. It's like, wow, I'm spending a lot of time watching The Voice. I kind of like The Voice.
I'll give you an example, though. For the last 2 weeks, I started this new diet, right? I haven't had any sugar in 2 weeks.
No wonder you're crabby.
No wonder. We wondered what was wrong with you.
Yeah, right. But what's interesting is, I don't crave sugar.
Like that on my couch, like 10 minutes before we started.
Yeah, but it wasn't crabby.
It's true, but you were crashed out.
I was a little crashed out. Anyway, but here's the thing.
Like you would have been crabby if you could move.
It takes a while. You essentially have to detox off of this stuff, right? And then you don't have those swings of blood sugar anymore. But in order for me to not just lose the weight, but get off of the sugar, I had to just stop eating sugar. And that's a sacrifice at first.
That's crazy.
and then it ends up changing what you want and desire. As you get rid of the sugar, you desire and want to eat other healthier things.
Alcohol.
Right. Liquefied grain sugar. Anyway, the point being, what we've abandoned in the American church is this idea that if you really want to change what you desire, you actually have to sacrifice first. You have to take up your cross and deny yourself. What our churches have generally said in order to appeal to more and more consumeristic Americans is you don't have to give up anything. You're going to be entertained. You're going to be comfortable.
I like that.
We're going to
message. I prefer
right.
that message.
Right, but then you don't end up transforming desires. All you end up doing is reinforcing them.
I will say, too, in my own experience, I didn't say this in January when we were talking about new things that we were going to do this year because I didn't want to speak it out yet because I didn't want to fail. But I started to read through the Bible. I had a friend, Sarah, that challenged me to read through, and I haven't missed, and I've read all the way through. We're almost at April, and it truly has been transformational.
Really?
And very much so, because I start every morning, and two things have happened. One, it's genuinely caused me to have an experience with the Lord every day. So there have been a couple of days where I've missed, and I felt this longing for that intimacy, number one. Number two is I've truly read through the Old Testament, and I'm learning things that I didn't know or seeing things that I didn't understand, asking questions that I hadn't asked. I'm learning to understand and know God more deeply.
You're using a study Bible?
No, I'm just using the Bible.
Text.
Just the text.
The Hebrew.
I wish. But I'm saying it does begin to change you from that heart level when you have that experience.
Have you seen any change in what you desire?
Absolutely.
Really?
Hugely. And also in my faith to just trust. Like I said, I've had a lot of hard stuff happen over the last 2 weeks. And my first reaction has not been despair. It's truly been, I've watched how God has...
But aren't you just an optimistic person and you never, ever despair about anything ever in your whole life?
That is not true.
Okay.
But I am generally an optimist, but I
didn't think that was true.
No, it's not true. But the point is, I truly have seen how God has carried these Israelites despite how they behaved. And it's given me hope to know I can chill out. He's got this.
So what have you had to change or give up in order to fit reading the Bible into your day every morning? Or
well, I started trying to get up a lot earlier.
There you go. There's a sacrifice.
Yeah.
There's a change of habit.
And sometimes I do that, and that's what I try to do most of all. However, if it doesn't happen, if I sleep in or whatever, I sacrifice time at work. And I say, I'm not going to do this thing that's the top of my to-do list until I sit down and spend this time, because I've realized I'll be empty. And what my soul is really longing for is that communion. And so now it's happened long enough, like enough days in a row, where I just can't go without. I just can't go without it. It's really changed me.
What I think we're uncovering is what the advertising industry has known for a long, long time.
What's that?
Which is people do not change their behaviors because of an argument. You change your behaviors because they've targeted your affections. They've changed your imagination or what you think about. And you have to be asking the question, what is shaping my affections? What is shaping my desires? What am I watching? What am I reading? What am I consuming? Facebook, social media.
I would like to think that I am smart enough to resist the impact of what I am consuming.
I would like to think that too.
I don't think any of us...
I don't think that's true.
Over time, yeah, you can engage things in certain doses and go, oh, I can intellectually pick that apart and not have it affect me. But if you really saturate yourself in some things, it does.
And I think the opposite has to be true. You have to be engaged in that kind of communion with God, I think. Because I think having that deep love lets you realize that this other stuff is not satisfying at all. And so I can get caught up from time to time in watching CNN or what's going on, but truthfully, I can turn it off and leave. Like, no, I don't know when the last time was I was really on Facebook. Seriously, I hadn't realized that until recently, but it's like I'm not really on there.
What do you think Facebook was doing for you before?
Making me feel connected.
Okay.
Like, I think there was this need of talking to others, them knowing me, me knowing them, wanting to be involved. Now, I just don't seem to have that need anymore as much.
You no longer need people.
I don't know. I just am telling you the change I've noticed, and the biggest change is that I really am desiring that time, that intimacy. And I think throughout my day, like, do you know what I just learned yesterday? I learned in Numbers when they were counting all the Israelites, and Moses said, "Here, go count everybody, just the men from 20 and up." There were over 2,200,000 something. But then think about it. You've got all the wives they had and the children they had, and then think about all the livestock. That's like 4 million or more, and that's
we got to bring John Walton into this conversation because he might burst your bubble a little bit.
Okay, well, just let me have this right now. Let me have this moment. But my point is,
there were
a lot of people. Can you imagine getting Chicago together and running around in tents and whatever? I mean,
have you ever been to Taste of Chicago?
That would have been horrible.
You know what? One of the worst experiences of my life was going down to the Taste on the 4th of July.
I took my wife down there when we hadn't been married long, and she was pregnant. And that was a terrible idea.
Yes, it was.
No, that's horrible.
A really, really terrible idea. So what can we do collectively? There's individual, but then there's like if you come together as your small group, as a church, how do you even begin to address what your affections are?
Well, the first step is what we've already been talking about, is you need church leaders who actually recognize that their responsibility is not just to form people's intellectual beliefs, but to form their affection. If they're not even aware of that, you're not getting anywhere. Then secondly, you have to take a step back, particularly from your corporate gatherings, and ask, what implicit values are we communicating in the way we do things in our large gatherings? So I do this all the time with church leaders. If you were to just sit in your worship space when it's empty and write down what you observe about the space, what implicit values are you communicating? Just in the physical space in which you worship. For example, if every seat is pointed toward the podium and the pastor, what does that communicate? If there are symbols absent or not present,
present or not
present, what does that communicate? What do you do when you gather? Is it all happy, slappy Christian feel-good worship, or do you actually have times where you gather together for lament? Do you gather together for confession? Do you gather together for other things other than just rah-rah? Not that that's always bad, but if every time you gather, it's all the focus just on the pastor, and the only thing you do is celebrate how great life is all the time, you are not forming people's affections.
You remember when it wasn't Michael Gungor, the other Gungor on the show.
David
Gungor.
David Gungor. We had David Gungor, the younger Gungor.
I like that.
The other younger Gungor?
On the show, and he was talking about worship music and just analyzing it and how the modern worship song and the way it's played is designed to evoke a transcendent emotional experience, not necessarily for the right reasons. And that he was trying to write music that intentionally didn't do that didn't push the buttons that we're used to having pushed by a well-produced worship performance. But then you listen to that and you experience that, and it's like, wow, it didn't quite have the same feeling, but what he's trying to do is wean you off of an artificial response just based on, well, this is the point where the drums kick in extra loud and the bass, doubles, and now you feel Jesus. He's saying, no, let's just, have you ever been to a Taizé service? Just, to sing quietly with no crescendos in the singing, for a half an hour straight can be deeply moving, but it's so foreign, to the way most of us are brought up or experience church. Okay, so senior pastors need to be more
I think we need to
affectionate.
First of all,
hugging?
You should really read Jamie Smith's book, and understand these ideas more and how we're actually created to be shaped by our affections rather than just our intellect. And then secondly, you need to do the work with other leaders in the church of thinking through what affections are we targeting and shaping in the way we do our gatherings, and perhaps unintentionally reinforcing the wrong things. Here's an example. Back when years and years, probably 10 years ago, we were launching a congregation out in Warrenville that I was more or less in charge of, really more or less. And we had a kid in the congregation who had pretty significant mental disabilities and severe disabilities, and he would at times burst out in the service with noises, or he couldn't control himself, and it was not a big congregation. And when those things happen, I realized I I have an opportunity here in how I'm going to respond, especially if it's in the middle of my sermon or other people in the congregation. And there have been stories of large churches where this has happened with other handicapped people, and they usher them out because you're disturbing people from focusing on the pastor, from focusing on the music or whatever. And we decided the way we're going to respond is to acknowledge it and recognize that this young man is as much a part of the body of Christ as the rest of us. And this is a place in a community in which everyone is welcome, and we want to actually utilize this as a formative moment where we can put our personal desires aside for maybe a really quiet space and awaken in us a desire for inclusivity, that we want everybody to be welcomed into this space, even those who aren't able to sit quietly the way we may prefer. So,
which could also speak to babies, and quiet rooms in megachurches to put the moms with noisy kids in.
Yeah, and it isn't that one. There's just two different values competing there. One is the value of my comfort, and the other is the value of community inclusivity. Right. And a lot of churches in America tend to take the dominant American cultural values and give those the trump card, for lack of a better word.
Right.
And anything that's going to push people outside of that comfort zone, well, that must be bad. And that's how you attract a lot of people.
That's part of the turn in the culture, that Willow Creek and the megachurch movement represented of, okay, people have changed. They don't like the way we used to do church. Let's poll them and see what they would be comfortable with. Let's meet in the middle. And there's got to be a part of that that's a good thing, right? Meeting.
Yeah, I think the value that would probably be expressed by those folks is that of hospitality. We want to create a hospital, and that's a good value.
Yeah, a safe place for a dangerous message.
Right.
That's what I heard over and over again with the seeker-sensitive movement. We're going to create a safe place for a dangerous message, although it's tempting to never quite get to the dangerous message.
That's the temptation,
because they stop coming. Yeah. All right.
And the thing is, if it's only a dangerous message that engages our minds, it's not really the gospel.
Right. Okay,
it has to be a dangerous community. It has to be a community that is going to force us to come to terms with our desires that may or may not conform to Christ.
A safe place for a dangerous community?
Yeah.
Like bikers?
No, but it's the sense that, is this community really going to call me to take up my cross and sacrifice myself? Or is it a place where I can be as narcissistic and self-centered as everyone else in America, but just have a sense of fire insurance that I'm not going to go to hell for it?
Right.
But I think, ultimately what it comes down to is that we have to take individual responsibility to be changed people.
To be the change we want to see in the world.
Where's Michael Jackson? Man in the Mirror.
I wouldn't quite say it that way. Change does begin with us.
I got a good wrap-up song.
Yes, you do.
Well, I do think, though, if you are a church leader, you have the added responsibility of shepherding people and creating a community where values are cultivated that train people to love the things of God.
Can you think of a message you preached that was intentionally designed to change or raise this issue, address affections?
Yeah, but I don't think it primarily happens well through preaching.
Oh, great.
That's another problem is we have this bias that the 30 minutes that the pastor's speaking is the formative moment.
Right.
That's getting to the head.
It is, and there's a place for that. I'm not saying it's all bad, but here's the problem. You've all been sitting in church for decades, and I'm guessing...
And look at us.
Right, you're a mess.
With us.
No, but you could probably count 3 or 4 sermons in your life that have probably been deeply impactful.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And you probably can't even recall 98% of them, right?
Right.
You can probably, if you start humming the bars to some songs, popular, you could probably start singing them right away.
Yeah.
And those songs are probably more formative in your understanding of your faith in God.
Sermons should be sung. Is that what you're saying?
I'm saying sermons need to be seen as one facet of a multifaceted gathering that trains one's affections. And this is where I think more symbolic and liturgical traditions have a better understanding of human nature than those that only emphasize the spoken word. Because spoken word is one element, but we have visual components to us, we have bodily components, movement, we have symbols, we have practices that the church calendar and other traditions were engaging in a meaningful way, in a repetitious way that shapes what we want and desire much more than just the spoken word does. Right. In fact, when you get too attached to spoken words, you end up developing an affection for the person speaking it more than the word itself. And that's where you get the cult of personality that he's talking about in our celebrity evangelical world.
So which denomination gets it right?
Mine.
The Church of SKYE.
Right. No, they all have their short short-sightedness and their problems. But I think in general, American culture has latched onto a verbal, celebrity-driven, personality-embodied form of Christianity that seems to dominate right now.
But how can you be okay with not doing the things that appear to be creating success for the churches around you?
You got to redefine success, because that definition of success is probably based on desires which you inherited from the culture.
Well, and that goes back to your point of if pastors really start changing things up like you're talking about,
churches get smaller first.
All of a sudden, A, pastors may not have a job, and B, churches are going to start disintegrating. I mean, there could be some radical changes if that really started happening.
Or we change nothing and we get Donald Trump.
Or we change nothing and we get Donald Trump.
But he's popular.
And I'm sure after he leaves the White House, he'll probably have a mega ministry somewhere.
Bite your tongue. He is not going to the White House.
How much could he get for a speech after the White House?
Oh, my word. Well, can we just not talk about this anymore?
Just think about... Never mind.
Okay. Well, I don't mean to kick you in the rump, but there are some things we can learn from Trump, like taking a little bit of a deflection to rethink what we've made our affections in the church and in our homes. I don't mean to make you moan, but we might need to sacrifice more, spend a little less time watching TV on the floor, and look to Jesus as our affection, because that's the one and true and holy direction we should go.
Amen to that.
Not bad.
Not too bad.
You could play that as a worship song on Sunday morning, and then I'll get a nickel through CCLI.
And happy Easter.
Happy Easter, everybody.
Happy Easter! Let's do an Easter special. Oh, it's too late.
Too late now.
Oh, next year. Easter special next year. See you
Bye,
next time.
everybody.